Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Razan Pereira. India and Myanmar on Thursday exchanged 10 agreements in a number of fields ranging from infrastructure, energy, communication and health. The agreements and memorandums of understanding were signed and exchanged after talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and visiting Myanmar President at Hyderabad House. The two leaders held discussions on a wide range of bilateral issues. The visiting dignitary arrived in India on Wednesday on a 4-day official visit. Earlier in the day, Myanmar's president was given a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He also visited Rajghat and paid tributes to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. India and Myanmar have close religious, linguistic and ethnic ties. Myanmar is the only ASEAN country bordering India which provides a gateway to Southeast Asia. In line with its Act East and Neighbourhood First policies, India has laid emphasis on boosting cooperation with Myanmar. India is the fifth largest trading partner of Myanmar and the current bilateral trade stands at $1.7 billion. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the bilateral relationship between India and Myanmar. Joining me on the program today are Vivek Karju, former ambassador, Harshvi Pant, Head Strategic Studies, Observer Research Foundation, Subhimal Bhattacharjee, Defence and Security Analyst, and Akhilesh Suman, Foreign Affairs Editor, Rajya Sabha TV. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Akhilesh, let me begin the program with you. Let's first talk about these 10 agreements now. What were some of the crucial ones? What were the sectors that these agreements were signed in?
One of the major trajectories of agreements was actually Rakhine State, development of Rakhine State, because India signed 4 agreements regarding Rakhine State. And these agreements include right from creating road infrastructure in one of the towns to creating solar panels in some of the towns, and also to create a situation when Rakhine Rohingya people can be resettled there. So I think these 4 agreements are very important, given the fact that India had always had a stand that that Rakhine or Rohingya problem cannot be solved the way Myanmar wants to solve. You need to keep people there, you need to stop people for their own economic engagement, and that is how Bangladesh can also say that yes, these people should go back. So India has helped and India is helping in creating a situation in Rakhine State. 4 agreements are there. One major agreement is about petroleum and gas. That Myanmar had been ready about a decade ago that India can take gas from there, but the then government did not want that time, whatever the reason. But now I think Myanmar and India has agreed that yes, you can get gas from there. So I think this is going to be a major achievement for India, given the fact that northeastern countries may get gas from directly from Myanmar. And one of the major agreements, I will also tell that it is about repatriation and stopping the people who are trafficked from Myanmar, though it shows that from both the sides, but it is about stopping trafficking and also about resettling the people back in both the countries if they have been trafficked. So I think these are the major agreements that India and Myanmar have signed.
Okay, all right. Harshvi Pant, as far as the bilateral relationship is concerned, what is the status of the relationship? Where do India and Myanmar stand? And how can we benefit from each other?
I think for India, it is increasingly becoming, India is one of the most important neighbors. And as you pointed out, as India reimagines its neighborhood, focusing more on the Bay of Bengal and BIMSTEC, you have Myanmar that is emerging as the linchpin of India's neighborhood first, as well as India's gateway to East and Southeast Asia. So the larger, Myanmar is interesting as it stands at that intersection between South Asia and Southeast Asia. And as India looks forward to engaging its neighborhood in more substantive ways, it has to engage with Myanmar first, more substantively. And we have seen a dramatic upturn in the relationship, especially if you look at our security cooperation on northeastern insurgents, which at one point was the single most important friction area. Today, we have moved to a point where increasing cooperation between the two security forces, joint exercises, joint maneuvering on the border, joint collaboration on how to tackle insurgents on the border is becoming more and more prominent. And the kind of cooperation that Myanmar is extending to India is unprecedented, and India has reciprocated by being very, very generous and by reaching out to Myanmar in ways that could not have imagined even a decade back. So clearly we are at an inflection point in this relationship that has grown through security cooperation, through burgeoning engagement in each other's infrastructure projects, and also looking at the strategic picture in India's neighborhood. Both Myanmar and India have a common perception as to where the strategic evolution of the neighborhood should happen, and how the two countries can benefit from the synergies that are being developed between the two sides. And of course, we have the religious and cultural link there as well, the Buddhist circuit, etc., which I think will go towards enhancing people-to-people ties. So it's a multi-layered relationship, and finally we are at a point where we can say that we are substantively engaged with each other.
All right. So Vimal, this issue of insurgency, let's take that particular aspect forward. We saw the first major big strike, of course, in 2015, post which we have seen, a sea change really as far as insurgency is concerned from 2019 to now. The same Myanmarese military which was not willing to cooperate maybe a decade ago is now cooperating. What has changed?
See, the northeast and Myanmar share 1643 kilometers of border, 4 states, right from Arunachal, Nagaland, Manipur and Mizoram. And leaving Mizoram, all the 3 states had regular movement of the different militant groups from our side to their side, and they got a lot of sanctuary. They launched their attacks from everything went on. And if you see in the last 2 years, but especially the May 19 joint operations where the NSC and IM Kaplang were taken off in an operation, I think that has given a message that this relationship, this security cooperation, this joint operations is going to go big time. And if you note, following that, and in the next few months, you saw also a signing of a defense agreement last year in December. You saw when last year in August, when their Senior General Hilang, the commander of the defense forces, when he was here, even we have given them a submarine, the Sindhuvir submarine. Before that, in a year back, we gave the torpedoes also. So consciously we have been trying to build that relationship on the security front, a strategic front. And mind you, particularly for the northeast, if you see Arunachal, there has been a lot of stretch where by which a lot of the militants also even used to go to China. So the recognition and the realization from the Myanmar government, particularly a military government which benefited a lot from the relationship with the Chinas, who still maintain a very good relation with the China, if they have recognized our issues, if they have taken forward that call, it is very important. And I think we are in the right track. We have to engage with them. We have to build up. If you look at the activist policy also, it's possibly the way where our approach for northeast to the Southeast Asian countries via Myanmar, as Mr. Pant has also mentioned, that land and maritime, both the gateways we have through them. And the 3 yardsticks that define our relationship there, the commerce, culture and connectivity, in all 3 of them we are concentrating. So right. I think to realize that, the first important thing is the security aspect, and I think both of us are taking it forward in the right spirit.
Okay, all right. So, on this issue of China, let me bring in Ambassador Karchu as well. Ambassador, is a deliberate effort being made by the Myanmarese military to strike a balance really with India and China? Because China, let's not forget, is the biggest investor in Myanmar. They have also announced the China-Myanmar economic corridor. So, at some point in time, does this visit also try to balance out the equation?
The Myanmaris have always wanted to balance to a degree India, China, and it's natural. It's something that can be expected. The question is, how is this balancing taking place? I agree with my co-panelists that India-Myanmar relations have shown a positive trajectory over the last decade, and that is a process that needs to continue. Culture, connectivity, commerce, all these are areas that require far greater attention from India. There are difficulties in
ambassador in Myanmar. But let us not forget that we are in a competitive environment in Myanmar. The Chinese embrace of Myanmar is getting stronger. And we can't isolate this from the Chinese embrace on our western flank. So if you look at the map, you'll see that the Chinese are in a firm embrace on the west with Pakistan, and on our eastern borders, that embrace is also getting stronger with Myanmar. I don't know whether we are doing enough in this direction. Is the engagement with Myanmar will be far more intense. These VVIP visits are fine, but what are the quantum of and the quality of interaction with Myanmar at the official and at the operational level? It is there that I have misgivings. We need to pay.
And at the operational level, it is there that I have misgivings. We need to pay far.
Okay, all right. Points taken. Let me take the points that you're making forward with the other panelists as well. But before that, Akhilesh, on this issue of the bilateral talks between Prime Minister Modi and the visiting dignitary, was there anything in particular that was discussed, any issue that was discussed at length really between the two leaders?
You know that one of the major thing is about connectivity, and I'm telling you that from April 2020, there will be a direct bus service between India and Myanmar is going to be, and naturally it is going to start from Manipur and it will go into Myanmari territory, and in April actually they will have a 14 hours route between India and Myanmar to showcase this route. Anyway, and other than that, that there is a question of how to connect with ASEAN through Myanmar. This is one of the major issues that India has been talking with Myanmar, and this trilateral highway is also going, but there is delay. Myanmar wants that it should be expedited as soon as possible. But what I am getting from Indian side, that there are some hiccups in making some bridges that are not feasible in some point of time. There is some sort of geographical problem, some sort of insurgency problem inside Myanmar also. So in that way, I think this is one of the major issues that is being. But other than that, strategic balancing is very important. And the type of investment, if you see in Myanmar, China has made, it is really very difficult to match for any other country. But what is more important, that what is the cost you are paying to China. So India has been always slow but consistent, supporter of Myanmar. And in this point of time, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has again assured President of Myanmar that India is there with you on the question of Rohingya. Remember, at a time when whole world was condemning Aung San Suu Kyi, some people were also asking that her Nobel Peace Prize should be recalled, but India stood firmly that this is a problem that Myanmar has to deal inside, and India is going to make all help. So I think Prime Minister Narendra Modi today also reiterated his all-out support for Myanmar as far as the internal problems are concerned. As far as economic issues are concerned, India has told that budgetary, other than budgetary support also, India will give Myanmar. That is why there is a quick impact agreement that has been signed between the two countries, and this quick impact project, if Myanmar wants something very quickly, India will be supporting. So there is a designated fund inside the Ministry of External Affairs through which you can support. And the third thing is about medical research and medical facilities. So there has been a consistent talk about it, and our embassy in Myanmar has been very active, but major hiccup has been from our trading or business community. They feel that they don't get such type of support from Myanmar as Chinese businessmen are getting. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi has talked to the President about the facilities to be provided to Indian business community who are residing there, so that they can work on quick manner as far as business facilitation is concerned. And I think these two things were very important for Myanmar.
Okay. All right, Harshdeep Pant, this issue of commerce, Akhilesh Suman also was pointing it out, even the ambassador was pointing it out, talking about how more needs to be done. Clearly more needs to be done, because if you look at the quantum of trade, it's $1.7 billion. I mean, that's not too much if you look at the two countries, and we are neighbors at the end of the day. So there's a lot more scope.
Absolutely, and I think that has been something that has been a point of contention insofar as the larger gamut of the relations are concerned, and that also puts India in a bit of a defensive when it comes to other actors, especially particularly China, which has grown leaps and bounds, both in terms of what it is investing in Myanmar, as well as the kind of trade that it is doing with Myanmar. And I think that is the reason why there has been so much emphasis on connectivity, that we need this connectivity in place, because for India also Myanmar becomes a gateway to Southeast Asia, and for Myanmar India becomes a gateway to South Asia. So there is that convergence here which needs to be exploited much better. I think there has been some problems, and I would agree with the ambassador there that we need more effective implementation of projects. We need timely implementation of projects, and especially on connectivity, which I think an infrastructure which Myanmar has been really seeking our help and has been very keen about. We need some expeditious involvement, and we can't really rely on delayed bureaucratic response. So I think the idea that there is a quick impact fund available is highly to be welcomed, because it makes it possible for India to respond in a manner that perhaps meets the aspirations of the Myanmarese. And look, we are in a world where China is really changing the rules of the game as far as aid and trade is concerned. And so unless India really comes up with proper institutional mechanisms that allow us to really involve ourselves in a manner that we can find suitable productive outcomes, it might be very difficult, or it might be too late. So clearly there is a recognition on both sides, and I think that's the good news, that we need certain institutional mechanisms. We need a top level push from the two leaders, and that's clearly now there. And I think also the fact that at the end of the day, Myanmar's people-to-people ties between India and Myanmar also play a very important role in this. So a lot of what is happening on the border is also informal. And how do you then translate that informal economy into formal economy is a question that perhaps needs to be looked at as you look at increasing the number of the volume of trade. So clearly, once you put certain things in perspective, both as was pointed out, whether it's commerce and connectivity, or even culture, what tourism brings to the table, whether it's a Buddhist circuit or whether it's the otherwise, how do you integrate that, and how can that increase the scope of our engagement, are perhaps questions that that Indian government and the Myanmarese government are now cognizant of, and one has to be a bit optimistic, but one has to be also at the same time aware that time may be running out, because balancing is all right, but when the time comes and when the crunch comes, then Myanmarese government would not be loath to take a side, and that might be a problem.
Okay. Taking this particular aspect forward, Suimal, let's not forget that the Chinese president was in Myanmar a short while ago, the first real such a high level visit in almost 19 to 20 years. A lot of big ticket announcements were made. Also, there's this whole talk of the China-Myanmar economic corridor, and how China is encircling us on our northern and eastern and western borders as well, with the CPEC and the CMEC, if we can call it that. How concerned should we be with all of this?
I think we should be concerned, definitely, because over the last decade, China has built a lot of the infrastructure in Myanmar. The airport in Neighbourhood, the roads. I was really thrilled when I went there. When I saw the roads in front of Parliament, you had 20-lane road. In many other places in Neighbourhood, you had 8-lane roads. There are no vehicles. So the infrastructure is there. In fact, I feel that Indian business houses should do a lot of their offshore meets and stuff like that, as many do in Colombo right now in Neighbourhood, because there are quality hotels. We have to go and engage. Culturally, we have to take the bait far much more easily, and these are the things that takes us closer. However, coming to your question, I think we cannot match all these Chinese investments for sure, and we are neither in that competition. But some of their strategic aspects that we have promised, we have to deliver on time. For example, if you look at that India, Myanmar, Thailand trilateral highway. Now, if you take two of those things that we agreed to do, the 120-kilometer road, beyond Tamu, and then the 69 bridges, which Mr. Akhilesh also mentioned. Now, what have we invested? We have not really invested even 10% of what we have committed in the last 2 years. So definitely, yes, there are issues, but then somewhere that also has to be bolstered from our side. So these are the things that give us inroad. For example, even if you look at the border trade, now More in Manipur as well as in Champai, Zorampur, in Mizoram. These are the two places only they are continuing. But we named Nampong in Arunachal as well as Anven in Nagaland. For quite some time back, we are not, making them function. So, if you have to move away from the typical border trade and go into formal trade, these are the things that you have to start. Secondly, what we have to also be careful from a security point of view, a lot of the drugs, a lot of illegal betel nut come from Myanmar via the northeast, even reach to many other places in the country. Now, these are some of the things also that we have to look into, because at the end of the day, if we are able to formalize the trade, then it goes from whatever it is. If you see in 2007, 2008, bilateral trade was about $94 million. In 2018-19, you are at $116 million. So, where has been really the increase? So, we have to find all these areas, and I feel that the Northeast's possibilities of expanding the trade and all is tremendous. That we'll have to look into.
Right.
These are the soft things that we have to do to counter, some of the threats or machinations that happen from China. At least our side, we can be able to, control or project our interests.
So do what we are best at is what you're suggesting, and don't take on China at their own game.
Absolutely, you can do
all
that.
right, all right. Time to get closing comments now from all my panelists, starting first with you, Akhilesh Suman. I'm going to go back to a point that the ambassador was making about how our engagement needs to be far more intense. It's okay to have high-level meetings, but what about the follow-up meetings? I mean, can we expect that in the near future?
Yeah, actually, this is the problem. This has been a problem with Myanmar for a long time, and what we had been getting that there are situations in the whole border areas, because there was a separatist movement, there was militancy, and still some Naga militants go inside Myanmar territory and they take shelter. So, these are the issues that still to be resolved. There is a border issue, still there is a border issue between India and Myanmar. Border is totally not delineated. It has to be delineated at some point of time, because many times I have heard that Myanmari forces come on the border, they also snatch some of the establishment that has been made by Indian community. So, you have to you have to create a situation when you can have a dialogue at local level, at business level, and also we have a very good number of Indian origin people who are living in Myanmar, but they are not so confident about their living, because they are also in a lower rung. They want that Indian presence in Myanmar should be increased, so that their influence in the business also should be increased. And what particularly they say that Indian people who are living in Myanmar should be also politically a bit active, because Chinese who are living there, they are very politically active. So, if you can activate your Indian origin people so that they can intervene in the domestic situation, that can be very good. So, India, I think should encourage this type of activity.
Ambassador, what's the best way forward? How do we take this relationship up a notch, and how do we overlook some of these issues that we have?
Look, I think we need to ensure that Myanmar occupies a far greater space in the Indian strategic imagination.
With our political and strategic and commercial.
Okay, all right. We seem to have a technical difficulty with the line there, and that's why I went to the ambassadors. It didn't go to him too much on the program. But, Professor, what's the best way forward?
Well, I think, I would just reiterate in some ways what the ambassador was trying to say there. I think we do have, a division that looks at Bangladesh and Myanmar in MEA. But clearly, I think when we look at our neighborhood, we don't still think of Myanmar as one of our neighbors. So, as we look at Bay of Bengal more closely and more cohesively as a unit that India needs to engage with, Myanmar's role both in integrating our northeast to the larger Southeast Asian landscape needs to be appreciated and needs to be worked upon. So, I think it will take some time before you have that push coming there. But again, time is not on our side. And so, we need to be working much harder on how to get some of our projects there accomplished, done on time, and therefore give the sense of confidence to the Myanmaris that India can be a reliable, credible partner. I think we have done extremely well in managing the Rohingya crisis. We have given them a sense that India will stand by them in a manner that allows India also to uphold certain values. India is saying that, look, you have to develop the region Rakhine. rather and invest there, build capacity there, and that's the long-term solution to this problem. At the same time, not condemning the government out and out. So clearly, India's approach there has served India well, and therefore Myanmar's reciprocity on the terror question, on the insurgent question, has also served Myanmaris well in India. So now there is a degree of confidence on which we need to build, and build by doing time-bound projects which are now visible to the Myanmaris, that India can also stand up in some ways, and India is a credible actor on the ground, rather than just talking in terms of joint statements and visits.
Okay, all right, and Suyal Bhattacharjee,
I
close the
think
show for us with your concluding remarks.
Same, three things, connectivity, culture and commerce. I think in Rakhine we have done well. Possibly we should now go to Mizoram and Chin, coming closer on the cultural front. There is relative peace on both the sides, and they have a lot of common cultural heritage. I think the trade through Moreh has to significantly increase, and we have to explore how much of the tourism inflow and outflow we have to do from that. That cultural aspect is very important for greater realization here, that we have to engage with them far much more.
Okay, all right. I think that summed it up really fantastically as far as the entire discussion is concerned. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is, as far as our relationship with Myanmar is concerned, it's a strong relationship. There are, of course, a few things that need to be focused on, those three being C cubed, connectivity, commerce and culture. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.